The business of college sports, as you knew it, is over. In its place, a high-stakes, high-revenue game where performance off the field matters more than ever. That's where ADC Partners comes in. We help athletic departments navigate this new era, boosting revenue, unlocking value, and building smarter strategies. From naming rights and stadium financing to multimedia rights and sales training, ADC has done it all at every level. Looking to win off the field? Then turn to ADC Partners, your trusted college sports business partner. For more information, visit adcpartners.com.
Hi, this is Tamica Smith-Jones, Chief Operating Officer for Kennesaw State University Athletics, and this is the Sports Business Conversations podcast from ADC Partners.
Hey, this is Dave Helmy of ADC Partners, and welcome to the 72nd episode of the Sports Business Conversations podcast. I wanted to mention the number of episodes to give you a little perspective on the number of people I've had a chance to talk to since launching this show a few years ago. Over 70 people who are leading, changing, improving sports business in different ways. And each of those folks brings things to the table that have helped them find success, like intelligence, foresight, experience, charisma, and so forth. My guest in this episode, Tamica Smith-Jones, who up until recently was the Chief Operating Officer of Kennesaw State Athletics, brings all those qualities to the table and then sprinkles in something unique to her: sheer force of will. Smith-Jones came to KSU by way of UC Riverside, where she broke barriers as the first Black female athletic director in the state of California. Returning to her hometown in Atlanta to take on that COO role, she has helped lead an athletic department in the midst of enormous transformation, including a move from FCS to FBS for the Owls football team. In our conversation, we talk about her inspiring path to Kennesaw State and how the COO role has evolved during this particularly tumultuous period in college sports. We talk about her leadership style, which she captures in her mantra, "I'm a person, not a position," working with athletes during the NIL era, and the essential role that athletics plays at a university. She also drops some hints about leaving Kennesaw State to take on her first role in professional sports, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening in on my conversation with Tamica Smith-Jones, COO of Kennesaw State University Athletics. Hope you enjoy. Tamica, welcome to the podcast, and let's get started first. For people who may be unfamiliar with Kennesaw State University, right? So can you give us a tour guide's review of the school? What should people know about it in general, and then athletics specifically?
Yeah, so Kennesaw State started out as a community college, founded in 1963. It is transformed to a Division II athletic program, Division I FCS, and now Division I FBS program competing in Conference USA. So we've been in the Big South for football. We've been in the ASUN. And now we're competing with the big boys in Conference USA.
It's getting real.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. We've had a lot of Division II championships over the years. We've been in Division I for over a decade and have had as much success in Division I. So 18 men and women's sports, over 450 student athletes, high academic institution, largest public institution in the state of Georgia that can go between us and another institution I won't name.
We don't talk about those folks on this podcast.
We don't. But 45,000 students.
Oh gosh, I had no idea it was that big. Yeah.
Yes, most people don't. Just outside of the city of Atlanta, in a very vibrant Kennesaw, Georgia, Cobb County. So a beautiful campus that merged in 2015 with Southern Polytechnical.
Okay.
Which is was a nearby campus in Marietta. So it really expanded our footprint and provided us a stronger academic focus for engineering and technology, which is really housed on that campus. They had sports, so they have facilities. Actually, right now we're playing baseball games there because we're renovating a new baseball facility here on our main campus.
Pretty handy.
Yeah, so about 150 undergrad, graduate, and doctoral degree programs across all disciplines. A dynamic dynamic university.
Wow. Okay. So this is a big, consequential, adjacent to a huge metro area, Division I competing, high growth university. So I guess that kind of makes the answer to the next question fairly self-evident, because you were the athletic director at UC Riverside
Yes.
for 5 years prior to this. So, I believe you were the first female AD
Yes.
in
Yes.
the state of California?
Yes, the first full time in the state at the Division I level. I didn't leave the last. I made that imprint, and we've got more since then. But yes, which a heavy task.
I kind of find it amazing that you were the first one, but I guess that's sort of the legacy that you've had as far as being in those opportunities to create new visions and new opportunities for yourself and others that follow you. But so 5 years at Riverside, what drew you across the country to Kennesaw State? I mean, obviously, just given the scale and scope of the university we just talked about, certainly there has to be an appeal there. But was there something more to that?
Yes, and for correction, I was the first Black woman to be in that position. There was, I know many others. I know Sandy Barber was at Cal for a while, and one of my favorite people in the whole world. But yeah, the transition from Riverside, first of all, just big shout out to University of California, Riverside, Chancellor Kim Wilcox, who's still there. Amazing man, really, had a heart for college athletics as a first-time chancellor. So that was beautiful, always working in tandem with a first-time chancellor and a first-time athletic director in that space.
We have to say go Highlanders for sure.
That's for sure. He was very supportive. He understood what I could bring to elevate that program and gave me a lot of tools and resources to be able to do that. And they're still thriving and competing at a high level to this day. But Atlanta's my hometown. So really what happened was COVID happened. It was
It's amazing how many conversations I'm still having today where COVID is this inflection point for people's careers. I mean, I guess it's no surprise given how monumental it was.
Absolutely. And so I was far away from home with small kids. California was hit, terribly hard. We were very conservative. We were pretty much on lockdown. I was doing a lot of my business back in Atlanta because we were working via Zoom and virtually. And so Georgia was wide open. And so that's how I came across this opportunity at Kennesaw. They opened a new position, which was the athletic chief operating officer, with a vision for the campus to move to the next level in sport, to have a new strategic plan soon, and to, do something they hadn't done, build new facilities, and just had such a bold vision. And I got called about it. Was I interested, coming out of the AD seat, being a number 2? I had done that before, so it wasn't a big deal for me. And, like they say, it's no place like home. So my mom had prayed for me to come home for about 7 years since I was, on that coast. But, just a tremendous vision and leadership that I got a chance to come and visit the campus, got a chance to meet the executive staff, the president, the athletic director. I just couldn't pass it up.
I know you're a faithful person, but it must feel like this is certain, if you want to call it serendipity or a certain plan out ahead of you, you have that opportunity the job just kind of opens up and they reach out to you. There must be a certain feeling of just going where I'm guided.
Dave, you must be a man of faith, because I definitely am a woman of faith. And I do believe that there is a predetermined plan out there for me, and I just try to follow it. God knows I'll make some moves, but I try not to get in front of him and definitely try not to misstep. So, the timing of it was perfect. The place was perfect, and the vision was just, something that I thought I could make a tremendous impact. And I've been fortunate to have been here for four and a half years now.
Well, let's talk about the current role for a second, right? Because, as I had talked to when we were getting ready to do this, I did read on the website that your job description. So I'm gonna go through it here very quickly. You have to go through it quickly, because if I spent time on it, it'd take a week.
Okay.
But here we go. Here's what the website says about your current activities. Okay. Oversees strategic planning initiatives, departmental policies, game operations, budgets, scheduling, facilities, and capital projects. Now, by any definition, that's a pretty broad portfolio of responsibilities, right? Yep. So how does someone in that role prioritize? right? So
Yeah.
how do you put things on the front burner? Because, as we'll get into in a bit, it's obviously a very dynamic time in college sports. But how do you do that? Like when you look at something that broad, what's the skill set that you're bringing to the table that helps you manage that?
Look, it's my mojo. I love it. I mean, as a
It's as simple
mother,
as that. It's all mojo related.
hey, as a mother, I multitask every day. I'm used
Anyway.
to throwing balls up and making sure nothing falls. So, but seriously, I definitely have a diverse portfolio. I think that just speaks volumes to the work that I've done over 25 years in this career. I've been a former coach. I've been a student athlete. I've been an athletic assistant. Been in the athletic director seat. So, there's a lot of things that,
None of this was unfamiliar.
Exactly. And that's the why I think that they were able to frame it in the way they did and be able to hand off some of the things that other people were actually trying to do or maybe, doing, or there were transitions. And so really how I prioritize it is, my job is to carry the athletic director's vision forward. So whatever he wants me to do any given day, and we meet periodically, a couple of times a day, but definitely every, a couple of days or so to, just focus, reset. I ask questions. I'm curious. I'm attentive to him as a servant. What's on your radar? Or what can I take off your plate? What do you need me to focus on? This is what I'm doing. I have a quick sheet that organizes me where I've got things compartmentalized as a chief operating officer, as an executive staff person, campus leader, and as a program administrator that's dealing with sports. And so I have these buckets on my whiteboard here. And really, that's how I split my portfolio. And every day, I'm working at a high level with my athletic director and executive staff. And I'm also anticipating needs and removing hurdles for coaches, student athletes, and staff members. Managing the budget helps me be able to be aware of all the things that are happening in the department. So it's a lot. There are a lot of blind spots.
A lot. That's an understatement.
Yeah, there are a lot of blind spots, but it's my job to remove those hurdles, speak to those blind spots, coaches up, help aid those unit managers. And every day is a day I'm involved in recruiting athletes, fundraising, game day operations, scheduling, travel, professional development, training, because we still have to keep training our staff for different things, especially with the new revenue share models and things. I mean, that was a whole nother budget fund model that we had to figure out and learn and then tell our coaches.
When you think about the role of chief operating officer and how you best work with the athletic director, is the athletic director setting the vision and then the operating officer executing on that vision? Is that the ideal setup?
That is. And then the athletic director can become more external. Yeah. And then I'm more internal dealing with. So everything comes to me. And, my athletic director say, have you talked to Tamica about it? Because before I even touch it, I want to make sure she's already vetted it. I'm giving him a briefing already on it. He can make the decision, or some things I have full autonomy. I make the decision. We keep going. So I think it's been a great model. I've seen more programs take on that model over the years. There's a deputy that, really is kind of number 3, and that chief operating officer is the number 2 closest to, managing all things. And it's a huge, job, because it's internal campus partners as well as your internal department. And it's also campus. I mean, it's also conference. Yeah. So I am the liaison with our conference. So anything that goes from the NCAA to the president to the athletic director, I get as well. And so it's just, if I see it, I'm executing it. So the president sees it, the athletic director sees it, but they're counting on me that I'm executing.
Yeah, yes, pull the levers.
That's correct. And just telling them where they're needed in that process.
Well, I'm assuming then that like somebody in your role is, and I can see why they created the role, right? Because like we've talked about, this is such an incredible moment in college sports, right? It's a time of incredible dynamic change, right? NIL, realignments, transfer portals. I mean, all this terminology that we never ever used with college sport didn't even exist 5 years ago is all now part of this experience. So someone who's been working in the industry for over 20 years, what's your perspective on the last few years of around college sports? Like, what opportunities and challenges does this present for the Kennesaw States of the world?
Yeah, listen, we have experienced every piece of the challenge. I mean, the transfer portal impacts our campus. I mean, we're sometimes a feeder school for the Power Fours now.
Yeah,
because we develop them, we get them.
You get a great player, and it's hard to keep them.
And then we win the championship for our conference for the first time in school history during my tenure. And we can't keep a kid. They will go off to a Power Four and make, $100,000 that we can't afford to pay them.
Right.
We've been a part of at least 2 conference realignments since I've been here 4 years. So you never know who you're going to be, what your schedule is going to look like. How do you budget for that?
Yeah.
You hope you can keep a core together. You hope you have peer institutions that are, high research, competitive, and Conference USA has done a really good job of that. And we wanted to be a part of a national landscape. So we were in the ASUN, so that was more Florida, Southern, schools. Regional, exactly. And so now the landscape is exactly what we want, because we get that broadcast, we get to recruit in those areas, we get to draw the students, and fans and donors and supporters.
Really elevating the profile of the department in a way that prevents real benefit.
Exactly. So I think there's been challenges, but I think, an institution like Kennesaw State that is known, I mean, our mascot is Scrappy. We're known to, just get in it and figure it out. So
Scrappy the Owl.
Yeah, but it's changed. It's really changed the dynamics of how our coaches recruit and how they coach their student athletes, how much they have to spend emotionally and supportively, retaining the students that they recruit. They recruit them every year now.
Right. It totally changes the way they interact with their players, right? I mean, it's like they have to, when a student, like in the previous iteration of college sports, they would expect that they would be around for a minimum of 3-4 years. Yep. And now it's like a constant renewal. So do coaches come to you and say, and help develop plans for that? Are you relying on them? So you have that interaction with coaches on a fundamental level. So
that's the program administrator part. So I'm the program administrator for men's and women's basketball. And really it is a general manager. Yeah. Like in pro sports. I mean, you're doing it all. You're meeting the parents, you're recruiting them, you're getting them here. Now you're trying to retain them. You're trying to figure out, revenue share, cost of attendance, any additional resources that you can give them to make sure they're, sufficient and they're having a great experience. And what I do plays a huge part in that, because coaches can't do it all. You got to let the coaches be able to coach us on things that we can't do, the X's and O's, the product that you're putting on the court. But I have to, I'm sitting in practice and I'm traveling with teams. I'm talking to parents, I'm setting up, donor engagements and activities to, make them feel, loved.
There is no off switch to this job.
No, it's not.
It is a pretty remarkable cadence with which you have to attack it. And when you think about your time at Riverside versus now, because that kind of is the moment where things really started to change.
Yep.
How is the role completely different now than what you experienced it previously? Or did you see it sort of evolving that way?
I've seen it evolving as an athletic director, and even as a number 2 at UTSA, and certainly at UC Riverside as an athletic director. I saw my role as an athletic director becoming way more political than I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I have a master's degree in public administration, but boy, I've needed to use it every day for sure.
You didn't think you'd be using it that much in this role.
But I also have my degrees in business administration, which I love. And so I think that has become, really the forefront of athletic director roles. It's no longer the old coaches that could get in the roles. And I was a coach, so they're great leaders too. You really have to have some high business acumen and entrepreneurial spirit, which I love. Right. Which makes this position as a COO and as an athletic director, I think, very attractive and fun.
Do you think it's because of the visibility of the role? I think most people can probably name the athletic director of a university before they can name the president of a university.
Absolutely.
Is that visibility what makes it such a political experience?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And it's expected to be out in the community, out on campus, shaking hands and kissing babies, all the town in gowns, which is a part of the role that I didn't necessarily want to have to do. I really wanted to stay true to the core of the student athlete experience and engaging at that level.
Well, you coached too, right? And so I've coached in the past too, and I mean, I think every coach goes into it because they want to work with young people, and they love
That's right.
the teaching
That's
and
right.
seeing the development and seeing kids fall down and then pick themselves back up, and then
Right.
finding success. There's a real joy in that. Does the transition to more of an administrator role make that more difficult for you, or are you still, because you're part of the overall program, is that still wound tightly around what you're doing?
It can certainly make it more difficult, but I think when you have an organizational structure like most high majors, power fours for sure,
Yep.
they have program administrators. So there's an administrator that is designated to a sport. And
Yep.
so that allows you to get to know that sport, their student athletes, those coaches. You do the coaches evaluation. So you really build relationships with those programs. So I think that keeps you closer, to your passion points,
Yeah.
to your North
Sort
Star.
of the whys of
That's
the
right.
world. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
right. That's right.
I read a great quote from you, and I'm going to steal it, admittedly. So I'm just letting you know right now, I'm already stealing it. But you said, "I am most proud of being a person and not a position."
That's right.
So I want to spend some time teasing that out, if you would. So could you please elaborate on that quote and how it informs the way you lead the department and the people you work with?
Yes. So I've got my core values. It's really centered around my faith, my family, and whatever I'm doing, I want to be enjoying and having fun. So those 3 F's, right?
That's not
And
coming across at all.
hey, so that's just me. I like to show up fully every day. And so, being a person and not just a position, sometimes, we can get in positions and we just point and we don't participate, we don't engage, we don't have deeper relationships with people. And I try to spend a lot more time doing that. It's just my heartstring. I love mission-driven work. I love impact work. I really appreciate my whole journey. So my diverse portfolio, I don't dismiss any of it. It's made me who I am, and I think it connects with a lot of people. And so I just try to live as an illustration of hope. Try to shine, the little light that I have. And if someone that, maybe trying to find their way in sports, in a career, in college and higher education, if they reach out to me, I want them to know they're getting a person that, is humble and will share and give, all that I can to set them up for success because, someone did it for me.
The person who helped recruit them is the same person they're going to see day in, day out.
Show up. That's right.
I mean, there's a lot to be said from getting out from behind the desk.
That's right.
And pitching in and helping out and not being, you're the number 2 in a rapidly growing, high profile university athletic department. It's pretty easy to direct rather than participate. Do you think that's starting to encapsulate that idea of person versus position?
Absolutely. And it's difficult at times.
Oh, sure.
Because there's a lot of things to do. So, you're delegating.
Yeah.
But what I try to do is absolutely focus on doing the things that I know only I can do best, or only that my director wants me to do. And when I get those lines clear, then I empower other people. I empower them. I hand things off to people, but I help them too. I don't just, hand it to them and let them figure it out. That's the pointing. I try to participate with them, and it allows them to grow as well.
Okay. So now, as a former athlete, you played basketball and cross country, I think, in your own college experience. I'm assuming you're excited by the growth of women's sports and the new opportunities for women athletes, right? Every day you pick up the paper and something new is happening.
So excited.
How do you feel like that growth in viewership, dollars, and so on in women's sports can impact Kennesaw State? Right? What's the impact going to be going forward, not only for the athletic program, particularly around women's sports, but for the university as a whole? What does that opportunity look like to you?
Yeah. So today we had an article that was released by our fantastic communications team that shared how our attendance, ticket sales, group sales have all just skyrocketed.
It's amazing.
And you just love to see that for the men and for the women. Our students are coming out more, our convocation center is rocking. It's just a great environment. And really, I wrote a book called A Ball and a Dream, and it shares my story of growing up, playing sports and just having a dream to go to college and, change the trajectory of my, life and family for generations. And, that's what I think that is happening right now in the landscape, is that there's just so many opportunities in sport for girls, for women in careers, that they're going to see it, up close and personal. 20 years ago, you wasn't seeing a lot. I went to school in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So my parents probably didn't see me at all on television.
Tamica, I went to school in the 80s. I'm not even sure there was women's sports back then. I have to
It's almost the pre-Title IX, time.
Yeah.
But now, our women, they play every game on ESPN network.
Yeah.
And then we get content that goes on CBS Sports. We had a women's basketball 2 Sports Center top 10.
Oh, man.
Can you believe that?
It's the gold standard right there.
Kennesaw State, the gold standard. So it's a fantastic time. I mean, I served on the women's basketball committee for the NCAA for 5 years prior to me coming to Kennesaw, and to see what we were able to do with the foundation that we had and continue to build on that. I go to the Final Four, women's Final Fours every year to just see what's happening with the WNBA and now how much more opportunity women have to go pro. Soccer, my daughter plays soccer, so very passionate about that. It's just a great time for women, great time for women's sports, and the support that we get from men. I always try to highlight that because sometimes it could seem like there's a competition, and in my role, I look at equity in everything we do. We got men's and women's basketball. I've got to make sure that we're paying market value for our men and our women's basketball team, coaches and staff, we're giving them the same budgets if they're traveling to the same places.
Right.
So I think that, it just goes to show there's room for all of us, and that women's sports is really on the rise. So
clearly on the rise, clearly going to have impact for the university. And the same thing, like we talked about earlier, there's been recently you're transitioning from FCS to FBS, right? So the football team is now playing in the football bowl subdivision. Yes. So can you provide? That's obviously a huge move for any university.
Let me just say that we were in the ASUN, and we would make maybe in revenue share about $200,000 or so, divvied up amongst our teams in the league. Moving to the FBS and Conference USA, we moved to $2 million.
Yeah, that's that's different.
So it's business, It's like if we want to be in the game and compete, we've got to make some of these moves, and hat off to our president and our athletic director and the team of us that were involved in those, decisions, because they're not easy, because you have coaches that are used to being very competitive in one league, and then all of a sudden we switch into another. They still got the players from another league. Now they've got to,
it's a different animal.
It's a different animal.
So clearly a financial decision, right? I mean, a 10x rev share opportunity.
Very much a business decision, but also elevating our national prominence and profile is a part of our strategic plan.
So let's talk about that. What is the role of the football program in elevating the profile of the university?
Absolutely. It's dollars and cents, it's male population, is athletics in many campuses is the front porch. So it's just a lot of visibility, the media rights, the revenue share. I mean, we don't get to do the revenue share if we don't have football and playing it at the highest level. First bowl game, Kennesaw State wins, man,
Yeah.
I don't even know what they're going to be saying about us then, because it's just going to be unbelievable transformation of a program and a community that's really bought in. I mean, this is Cobb County's university, so they really come out and support. You've got donors that didn't even attend Kennesaw State that are, all in. I mean, it gives us an opportunity to get into, private, equity ventures, just different models of financial growth that we can experience,
It just opens up so many doors.
It does. And
it's interesting. I think so many schools, right? Obviously, this is a time of great tumult in the funding of college athletic departments. And there's a balance. And out here in California, some schools have eliminated their athletic departments completely.
Yeah.
And I think those are the ones that look at athletics as an expense.
Yep.
And I think where you are and where a lot of universities find success is when you look at it as an investment.
That's right.
Because it does not, and if you look at it from the immediate, just the dollars and cents thing, okay, yeah, it can look like an expense, but there's all the soft value that comes along with it too that you need to take into account. And it's clearly what Kennesaw has done in this regard.
Our valuation now is off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, and we started doing those when we went to March Madness, and, the enrollment peaked, more sponsorships, more sponsors were interested, just was able to build our portfolio and expand in every area. Huge partnerships that were doing great business with us wanted to do more. So we get into a relationship with our medical school and Wellstar Health Services.
Mm-hmm.
And, they give us, 20 more million in investment to build a sports complex that will help our student athletes develop, but also help them with research. So
right.
it just really, expands the opportunity that otherwise we would be limited.
Your role is vast, but it's also, I think, a role that interests a lot of people, right? I think there's so many, I'm assuming you get calls for informational interviews and things like that on a regular basis. Probably as many times as you get podcast requests.
My students wear me out. We have a sports management program, and I think every week I'm doing something for them, but right. I love it.
All right, so let's take that then. So you're speaking to the students all the time. What's the advice that you give them, right? Because I think they see your role and they're like, oh, I desperately want to do that.
Yep.
What's the guidance that you give them? How do they set themselves up for future success?
Thank you for asking that, because that's really my heartbeat. As a former graduate assistant, which is where I started my administrative career, we encourage our student athletes to get into content creation and do it in off season. So if you have a soccer player that wants to, learn digital content or communication or something in sports information, then in their off season, we have them work within our department and learn those skills. And then, when our student athletes graduate, we're a doctoral program. So we invite them to, earn their master's, and we have graduate assistant opportunities for them that we can pay for their grad school, give them a stipend, and then allow them to now shadow executive staff and athletic administrators, which gives them a lot of experience. And so
they really get an opportunity to see.
They really do. And I tell them, my advice to them is to volunteer until you can get an opportunity to be paid for the opportunity to develop your skills, but don't miss out on the volunteerism. That's a huge part of this process. But also, grad school helps you deepen your knowledge in things. And then from there, your gift makes room for you. I mean, you find out you can do something well, you go down a lot of different paths, but we like to hire our own. We have many of our student athletes that are now on our staff as full-time employees or part-time employees. We are in the metropolitan area, so we're able to get a lot of the corporations to come on our campus. We have all types of student development nights where we do resume building, networking nights, bring in businesses. So they have a tremendous opportunity to learn and grow while they're playing sports, and have an opportunity when they're done with sports to just stay put for 2 years, earn that next degree, get their resumes out the pile, and find their way.
This is actually a pretty relevant question right now, because it turns out, as we talked about when we were getting ready to hit the record button, that the chair that you're sitting in right now is actually going to be empty pretty soon. You are moving on to new pastures, and I was hoping you might be able to give us a little bit of a sense of what's next for you, Tamica Smith-Jones.
Yeah, Dave. So you're the first to get it. I'm going to be moving from the collegiate realm. I'm going to retire from college athletics, believe it or not, and take my talents to the pros. So I'm going to the big leagues. I've been drafted. They
went down and took a look and said, "Here's the superstar." Where are you headed? What is going to be next?
I can't tell you exactly yet because it's not public, and I couldn't risk. You
can't risk that. Oh, you're like I'm like some of us I'm gonna say, keep it secret.
Just know it's going to be here in my hometown, Atlanta. Right. I don't have to move addresses. I'm super excited. A great organization, and in a very similar role as the number 2 for the general manager, facilities, operations of protein.
Oh my goodness.
It's a dream job. Let me just tell you.
Are you feeling very, very energized by it? I mean, I know this is an audio environment, so people can't see your face, but I mean, like, there is a vibrancy right now. You can tell you're chomping at the bit a little bit.
It's divine. Just know it's divine. I know God has heard my prayers. And, I knew that, college athletics would end at some point for me. I'm very entrepreneurial at heart. So, just something new. I'm always making bold moves and just, trying to find that impact, make sure I'm, setting things up and then handing it off to someone else. And so that really makes me excited as well to know that there's going to be something fresh here at Kennesaw. And then I can move on to another position where they've created the position for me.
Tamica Smith-Jones, there are exciting things in your future. I can't wait to see the news and maybe release this podcast right about the same time that's become more publicly available. So congratulations. I want to thank you for your time. But before I let you go,
okay,
I'm going to put you in the lightning round.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, that's the right response right there. This is the lightning round. This is a series of questions that I want you to please answer.
Honestly, I know. Go on and give it to me.
You're okay. You're ready. Right. Here she is. She's braced. She's ready. Here we go. Tamica Smith-Jones in the lightning round. Okay. Kennesaw State teams are the Owls. Can you please give us an owl fun fact?
Owls are competitive.
Owls are competitive. I did not know that about the owl. They're not solitary creatures. They're very competitive. They want their own territory. Okay. All right. Very good. Good to know. All right. Competitive owls. You played college basketball at both Troy and Alabama A&M. If you were to play Caitlin Clark in a game of 21, what would the final score be?
Caitlin Clark, man, we both would be trying to, shoot the three balls. So
right.
I think I would probably go up by one by faking up three and head it straight to the basket.
Yeah.
I'd win by one.
You won by one. Okay. That's kind of what I was going to say here too, only because I'm terrified to say anything else. All right. Here is another quote from you. I can multitask like nobody's business. What have you been doing while we've been recording this podcast?
What have I been doing?
Well, you've been multitasking clearly, right? Because you can multitask like nobody's business. So what else have you been doing while you've been
really
talking to me?
Focus with you during this podcast, Dave.
I'm not like so honored. Like I'm not like knitting a blanket or anything, or like
a full undivided attention.
Full undivided. Like there's no strategic plan going up on the screen next to you or anything like that.
Not at all. If I'm on a podcast or if I'm speaking publicly, I'm focused.
All right, I appreciate that. All right, last one.
I'm observing the room, but since I'm in my office by myself, I'm it's just me and you, Dave.
Okay, here we do it. Last one. Here we go. Like you mentioned, you've written a book, A Ball and a Dream. And one of the reviews on Amazon refers to you as the Tony Dungy of athletics and administration.
Wow.
Your thoughts on whether he should be called the Tamica Smith-Jones of football coaching?
You already know, Dave. He should be called the Tamica Jones of football coaching. I'm sure he would agree. And guess what? I've met Tony Dungy. I got a picture with him and my son. So great guy, did a great job, But yeah. He should be called the
next
Tamica
time you circle back with him next time you meet. You can just make sure make sure to let him know.
Humbly.
Tamica Smith-Jones, I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the One-on-One Sports Business Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed it, we always appreciate a subscribe, share, comment, or like. And don't forget, you can always find past episodes at abcpartners.com/podcast. This podcast is written, produced, edited, and hosted by Dave Almy. And theme music was composed by Scott Holmes.